But let's focus in on the second son of Donald Trump, Eric Trump, saying that the president, his father, thought of Charlie Kirk as a second son. Every once in a while, you run across a story, and by you, I mean me, that is just, the headline is what got me. And then I read through, and it's just, the Trumps are the stupidest people in the history of people, maybe. A remarkable thing that Donald Trump claims he is a genetic wonderkin. He's got good genes. He's always talking about it as though he is his own one-man Third Reich, just creating the master race, when really he's a nightmare. Cognitively, he's a nightmare. Physically, he's a nightmare. He's just and his progeny are nightmares. They're chinless freaks, and they don't think before they speak. There's no preparation gone into anything. And I guess that's kind of what happens when you are a Nepo baby, when you've never worked for anything in your life, just like Donald Trump. He was given everything as a toddler on. The same thing with his kids. They're given everything. So in their brains, because they've never faced adversity, because they've never done anything, they think they're at the pinnacle of achievement. Get a load of this headline. Seriously. Eric Trump says president saw Charlie Kirk as second son and calls assassination the biggest mistake for the left. We'll set aside that the assassination wasn't a left-wing organized thing. There was a lone gunman that we don't even know the motives of yet at all. But let's focus in on the second son of Donald Trump, Eric Trump, saying that the president, his father, thought of Charlie Kirk as a second son. Not a fourth son. After all, Donald Trump has 3 sons. Donald Trump Jr., we'll put some pictures up here. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Barron Trump. So he would be the 4th son, not the second son. And Eric Trump thinks so little of himself that he's usurping his own position as the second son and passing it on to the late Charlie Kirk. Eric Trump said Tuesday that his dad, President Trump, saw Charlie Kirk as a second son, making his assassination the biggest mistake that will hurt the left for generations. Kirk had known the Trumps for at least a decade after first pitching his organization, Turning Point USA, which twice helped reach younger voters and twice propelled Trump into the White House. But this obviously is a Rupert Murdoch-owned paper outlet, tabloid, the New York Post. That's why it's so framed, so friendly to Donald Trump. Twice propelled Trump into the White House. Eric Trump told Fox and Friends early Tuesday, Kirk's movement became exactly what he described to me 10 years ago when he became obviously dear friends with President Trump, the president's son said. Quote, he became probably a second son to my father, Eric said. He fought beside us. I was on that stage with him 100 times. I mean, he was an amazing person. Kirk, 31, was shot dead last week while speaking at a campus event at Utah Valley University. It followed 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life before the 2024 election. Once when he was hit in the ear, he was not hit in the ear at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And again, when he was targeted during a golf outing in West Palm Beach, Florida. He was not targeted. There was a guy in the bushes, didn't even have eyesight of Donald Trump. That's not an assassination attempt, dipshits. 2 more paragraphs and then we'll get to the rest of this. Eric Trump blamed all 3 shocking events on left-wing extremists, and the latest one he predicted will hurt Trump's opponents for generations. Quote, I always talk about the law of unintended consequences in the world. I always talk about it, he says. I'm always talking about the law of unintended consequences, says second son of Donald Trump, Eric Trump. I always talk about the law of unintended consequences in the world, and they made the they. made the biggest mistake of their life, Eric Trump said. They tried to do it to my father in Butler. It was a registered Republican who shot your dad or shot at your dad. They tried to do it to my father in Butler. They tried to do it to him on a golf course. Now they did it to Charlie, he said. So what, this is interesting to me. You got Barron Trump, the youngest, looking as fascist as ever. You got Don Jr., the oldest son. And then you got Eric Trump, the second son. Maybe it's just embedded into their psyches that they're unimportant because, after all, Donald Trump doesn't sexually lust after Eric, the second son, Don Jr., the first son, or you hope so, or Barron, the third son, like he does sexually lust after Ivanka Trump. Remember, perhaps, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd be dating her, Ivanka. What do you have most in common with Ivanka? Well, I was gonna say sex, he said. Yeah. But yeah, here's Eric Trump. My father, he thought of Charlie Kirk as the second son. These people. It's self-immolation. It's just, what are they doing? No other point, just to laugh. I mean, sometimes you got to poke fun at these idiots, right?
We'd probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart.
Donald Trump's not beating the allegation that he's a fascist. For all of the hand-wringing and crocodile tears that have been shed over the past few days following Charlie Kirk's assassination, of the right trying to gin up sympathy that Democrats have called them fascists, even though Donald Trump himself has called Kamala Harris and Democrats fascists and scum and enemies from within and a host of invectives that, under their logic, would cause people to commit violence against Kamala Harris. But he's not beating the allegation of being a fascist. Yesterday on the lawn of the White House, he was asked by Jonathan Karl, a reporter, a storied reporter, a reputable reporter, not a bomb thrower, not some liberal activist reporter, just a run-of-the-mill White House reporter. And Jonathan Karl asked him, this is the question that was offensive, so offensive that Donald Trump launched into a threatening attack against him, threatening the weight and power of the federal government to investigate and come down on him for the question because it was perceived as hateful. This was the hateful question, the unfair, our toddler president marked it. What do you make of Pam Bondi saying she's gonna go after hate speech? A lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech. A lot of your allies, including Charlie Kirk, say hate speech is free speech. What say you, Mr. President? And Donald Trump launches into a fascist, autocratic, king-like attack on this journalist who is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Watch this remarkable, yet not shocking or surprising moment from dipshit Donald Trump.
And what do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech. We'd probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't been fair. And the radical left has done tremendous damage to the country. But we're fixing it. We have right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. And remember, 1 year ago, our country was dead. And now Washington, D.C. is fixed, and I fixed it. The mayor was fine. Yeah. The mayor was just fine, okay? The mayor had a sick city for many years. He's been mayor for many years. The one that fixed it was me and my people, and it is so safe. You should take your beautiful wife tonight and have dinner down there. You won't be shot. You won't be accosted. You won't even be looked at incorrectly by anybody. Washington, D.C. is safe. Now we're going to Memphis, where it's pretty rough, to put it mildly.
You caught the nuance there in what Donald Trump said, right? The specificity with which his words indicate who will be doing the going after of Jonathan Karl. We'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. I was just made aware of the unfair treatment clause of the United States Constitution. That's a carve out in the First Amendment. You have the right to redress your government. You have the right to assemble. You have a right to political speech unless it's unfair to Donald Trump, the little baby. These people are a joke. Republicans are nowhere to be found as their president spits in the face of the Constitution of the wipes his ass, his ample ass with the Constitution, attacking this reporter, threatening this reporter with retribution, with using the width and breadth and the power of the United States government as a weapon against someone for unfair treatment. You have a lot of hate in your heart, he says. Who is it that has hate in their heart? Could it be this Donald Trump, this version of Donald Trump, who talks about the scum and the enemy from within?
The enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country, that's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
That's not hateful or unfair, though. That's loving and kind and Christian-like, right? How about this rant about radical left lunatics, sick people? And maybe, just maybe, they need, these sick radical left lunatics need to be handled by the United States military.
Are you expecting chaos on Election Day?
No, I don't think so. Not from the side that votes for Trump.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on Election Day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years. Yeah. You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You've got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists. Right. What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful Election Day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of Election Day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Oh, filled with love and fairness and kindness and respect for the parameters and the guardrails set by the United States Constitution by this president. Or how about this one? We'll just end with this. This is Donald Trump saying that Democrats and the press both are enemies of the people of the United States.
One thing I have been, even the enemy, because they are the enemy, what they've said, even that enemy too, and they're really the enemy. They're the enemy of the people, the press.
So next time you see a Republican on the news whining like Ryan Zinke was on CNN, whining about, oh, they called him fascist. This is fascist behavior. The dear leader doesn't like what the reporter asked, so he's threatened and attacked. That's fascism. Fascism isn't a political party. It's an ideology. It's a spectrum. There are identifying characteristics of fascism. And Donald Trump meets the hallmarks of 90% of them. Do not be fooled. Do not be distracted. One, the Epstein files are still in the news, Donald. No one's forgotten about them. Charlie Kirk wasn't a big enough distraction for us to forget that your name is riddled throughout a document that chronicles the relationship between you and a notorious sex trafficker and abuser of young girls, your pal. We haven't forgotten. And how best to prevent and to respond to violent extremism seems like something the government should be attuned to, no? There is one positive thing about the Trump administration and the cadre of goofs that he's put around him, and it's just the fecklessness. It's just the idiocy. It's the bumbling, stumbling nature of how they operate. And the obvious, just ham-fisted nonsense that takes place on a daily basis. It appears as though, from reporting from 404 Media, that in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, after the right wing lost its mind and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller and all of these asshole liars are out there acting as though left-wing violence is what caused the shooting. Left-wing incitement is what did this. We don't know anything about anything yet. We don't have any facts. We don't have any motives. We don't know. And they're already saying they did this. This was an organized campaign. Democrats did this, they say apoplectically. In the wake of that, they deleted a report. This report that the internet is forever, folks. I've had this for a long time. This report that outlines right-wing extremist domestic terror. That is the chief worry of the United States going forward. And this was erased from government websites as a resource. And it's a resource so we can prevent radicalism, the radicalizing of a population, so we can prevent it, but also how we can reverse after it's already been done. And it's been deleted by the government. This is a reporting from 404 Media. Get a load of this headline. DOJ deletes study showing domestic terrorists are most often right-wing. Following Charlie Kirk's assassination and the Trump administration's promise to go after, quote, the radical left, a study showing most domestic terrorism is far right was disappeared. Why would that be? I wonder why Donald Trump, it would be in his best interest to obscure the fact, the data, the research, the empirical evidence that right-wing terrorism is a graver threat than Islamic terrorism or left-wing terrorism, that the call's coming from inside the house, as it were. The Department of Justice has removed a study showing that white supremacist and far-right violence, quote, continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism in the United States. The study, which was conducted by the National Institute of Justice and hosted on a DOJ website, was available there until September 12, 2025, according to an archive of the page saved by the Wayback Machine. Daniel Malmer, a PhD student studying online extremism at UNC Chapel Hill, first noticed the paper was deleted. Quote, the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs is currently reviewing its websites and materials in accordance with recent executive orders and related guidance, reads a message on the page where the study was formerly hosted. During this review, some pages and publications will be unavailable. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. The executive orders that they're talking about are penned by Donald Trump or Will Scharf, his nursemaid. They are signed by Donald Trump. This is a direct result of Donald Trump's ideology and hiding the facts, obscuring the reality of the very real, clear, and present danger that is faced by Americans at the hands of Donald Trump allies, Donald Trump supporters, Donald Trump benefactors, Donald Trump cult members. Shortly after Donald Trump took office, he issued an executive order that forced government agencies to scrub their sites of any mention of diversity, gender, DEI, and other forbidden words, and perceived notions of wokeness. The executive order impacted every government agency, including NASA, and was a huge waste of engineers' time. We don't know why the study about far-right extremist violence was removed recently, but it comes immediately after the assassination of conservative personality Charlie Kirk, accusations from the administration that the left is responsible for most political violence in the country, and a renewed commitment from the administration to crack down on the radical left. So, let me read you just from this very first page of this. What National Institute of Justice, that's what NIJ is, what NIJ research tells us about domestic extremism. And here is the purpose for this report. Again, as I summarized earlier, NIJ-funded research projects have led to a better understanding of the processes that result in violent action, factors that increase the risk of radicalizing to violence, and how best to prevent and respond to violent extremism, and how best to prevent and to respond to violent extremism. Seems like something the government should be attuned to, no? Seems like something we should set our minds to, our budgets to, our policy to, our hearts to, is preventing and responding adequately to violent extremism on either side. Now, the problem is when I say either side, I'm not giving equal weight to either side. Of course, there's radicals and violent people on the left, but if we're doing a scale here, it's right wing, very heavy in their amount of violence, their predilection toward violent action, right wing terror, the insurrection, ring a bell, and then up here, oh, you've got some left wingers. Listen to this. Militant, nationalistic, white supremacist violent extremism has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic extremism. Since 1990, get a load of these numbers. Remarkable. And by the way, it removes any doubt as to why, any question as to why, what the motives would be of Donald Trump having this removed, trying to disappear this report, as 404 categorized it. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. In the same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. A recent threat assessment by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security concluded that domestic violent extremists are an acute threat and highlighted a probability that the COVID-19 pandemic-related stressors, long-standing ideological grievances related to immigration, and narratives surrounding electoral fraud will continue to serve as justification for violent actions. Those numbers are wild, are they not? Since 1990, 227 events that took 520 lives at the hands of right-wing ideological extremists, domestic terrorists, while left-wing, 42 motivated attacks, 78 lives. Is it a problem? Yeah, yes, of course. Any loss of life at the hands of terrorists, domestic extremists, is tragic. But to put them on the same scale, both sides have a problem. You're not doing it justice. You're giving the right the benefit of the doubt. You're legitimizing their point of view. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to give them, fascists, the benefit of the doubt. Because Donald Trump encourages violence with his words, with his actions, with his attitudes. There is no left-wing politician, no Democrat in office that encourages violence. the encouragement, the incitement, the condoning of violence only happens on the right. It only happens. I'm not talking about dipshits who are fired up on Twitter. I'm talking about political leaders. Over the past 20 years, the body of research that examines terrorism and domestic violent extremism has grown exponentially. Studies have looked at the similarities and differences between radicalization to violent domestic ideologies and radicalization to foreign extremist ideologies. Research has found that radicalization processes and outcomes, and perhaps potential prevention and intervention points, vary by group structure and crime type. In addition, research has explored promising and effective approaches for how communities can respond to radicalization and prevent future attacks. Would we not be interested in identifying before it happens in order to prevent the loss of life, the loss of Americans, the violent intervention in a political way, which is terrorism? Would we not want that? Why would this report be removed if they're concerned about curbing political violence, domestic extremism? We cannot let them off the hook. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. Please subscribe to this work. You can subscribe. You can like and follow the Facebook page of Dollemore Daily over there. You can also subscribe right here on YouTube. All of that is free. But if you want to help support this work, help me spread the word, talking about things like this, the other topics that I do on a daily basis, please consider supporting this work. Go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. For $2 a month, you can support this work over there. You can also do it right here on YouTube. You can click the join button below or over on the Facebook.
This lack of compassion and lack of empathy and lack of decency and lack of fact. And my God, I'm home to the Mayo Clinic. I had to issue an executive order that if you want to get a vaccine, you can.
In this moment in political history, it's more important than ever when you find a good and decent political leader with a good heart, with a good idea about how to provide leadership, with a good idea about how to push back against fascism in this moment, you hold on to that person. You support that person. And I believe in this moment, one of those people is Tim Walz, who just announced his re-election campaign for governor of Minnesota. In fact, below, I'm going to put a link to a fundraiser for campaign fundraiser. If you've got $2, $5, $10, $20, $100, if you got money, a little bit of money to help support his campaign, we need seasoned, effective leaders in this moment, especially more than ever. When you've got Donald Trump running roughshod over Democrats in Congress, we need governors with a spine and with a heart to serve. I have two clips here from an interview he did yesterday on MSNBC. And the first is him reacting to Donald Trump feigning or maybe really not knowing who Melissa Hortman was and just how disgusting that was. I like Tim Walz. Everybody's got their favorites in politics, and he's up there among a group of people that I very much admire, both for his service, but also for his attitudes about service. You're going to hear him talk about servant leadership, which I love to hear from politicians because it's something I talk about. That Donald Trump is a public servant, and servant leadership is a characteristic that you should be looking for. We should prize in our political leaders. They're not royalty. They should not be treated like, oh, it's the president. We must, I must act a certain way and dress a certain. No. And Tim Walz doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. He's not looking for the king treatment like so many do. Watch this. Him reacting to Donald Trump, and then we're going to go on to some more important things about actually how to, when to, why to push back against Donald Trump. First, though, his reaction to Donald Trump's callous response about Melissa Hortman's assassination.
Melissa Hortman was a close friend of yours. She's featured heavily in your announcement video. She's clearly been top of mind for you as you've rolled out your re-election campaign. And I just have to start by asking you what went through your head, what went through your mind when you heard those remarks from Donald Trump in the Oval Office yesterday?
Well, Jen, it's good to see you, and thank you for asking. It's been pretty traumatic in Minnesota, and I think Minnesotans, certainly every Minnesotan knows Melissa Hortman's name, and most decent people do. What goes through my mind is nothing surprises me. There's no compassion, there's no empathy in this man, and there's no sense of governing for the whole country. We had a horrific act of political violence, and the loss of an exceptional human being, a mom. It's hard to explain to people, and it gets reduced to a footnote. This beautiful life, this big life, Melissa Mark, Gilbert, Melissa, she fostered and helped train service dogs, and Gilbert failed, and she told me on a wink that she said, I want him to fail so he could stay with us. And just a decent person, and probably one of the most skillful legislators I've ever worked with. Minnesota's a better state that got massive things done to improve people's lives, and you just see, you know, the disrespect and how easy that rolled off his tongue, yet we're supposed to believe that they're definitely concerned about political violence. And you see the vice president, you know, go on a podcast, it's government by podcast, to just lie and to bring hate. And they're not interested in solving this. We in Minnesota are. And I said today, announcing that I was going to run again, look, I don't think I have any, you know, you don't have a right to stay in these jobs, but I'm proud of the work we did together. I'm proud of Melissa's legacy. And I think right now, as you said, folks are standing up, and brave folks, teachers standing up for their students who bring their full selves to their classrooms. We had doctors here who patched up little bodies after they were shot with assault rifles and stood up and said, damn it, do something about this. We're tired of patching them up. Get rid of these things. And all across this country, you got people pushing back, and you've got a president that sees the presidency as his personal kingdom and a revenge tour. He's doing nothing to improve people's lives. Insurance costs are at a 15-year high. We see electricity costs going up. He's not fixing anything for anyone, and it's all smoke and mirrors. So I think when people see this, and I appreciate you asking about Melissa, I think there's a steeled resolve in Minnesota that we're done with this. 2 weekends in a row, we've gone to memorial services for an 8 and 10-year-old to hear about these beautiful lives. And I guarantee you Donald Trump doesn't know their names. And he's out there doing this. He doesn't care. I actually believe, Jen, if there had been students shot at that event, I don't know what he would have done, because apparently this is, as the vice president said, a fact of life. Well, we're done with it in Minnesota. We're going to do something about it. We're going to continue to try and improve lives. And I don't expect any help. And in fact, I just expect the president continue to interfere.
Notice so much of what he talks about isn't about himself. It's about teachers going out there every day and doing the work. It's about doctors going out there every day and healing people, or trying to, in the wake of mass shootings. He's talking about others. He's not centering it on himself like a selfish ghoul, like Donald Trump. If you haven't seen Donald Trump, I was going to play it, but you can go back. Yesterday, I did a video about Donald Trump acting like, oh, who? I'm not familiar, who? I wouldn't even thought to have flown the flag at half-staff from Melissa Hortman, Donald Trump said. I wouldn't even thought of it. It's Tim Walz's fault. Everything's always someone else with Donald Trump. This next part of the interview is fantastic because, one, it's when he invokes the term that I love so much, servant leadership, but he's given a blueprint for how to push back. He's talking about, she asked the question, Jen Psaki here asked the questions about, you're someone who's on the enemies list, which should be a mind-blowing thing to hear for any American, conservative or liberal, that the president of the United States has an enemies list that he's ticking through on how to threaten, how to attack, how to harm these people that he perceives as enemies, scum, deranged lunatics, the enemy from within. And here's what Tim Walz has to say.
I mean, you've decided to run for a third term. We're in a politically fraught environment, a dangerous environment, one where you are, as I mentioned, I think likely top of the enemies list. Why did you decide to run for a third term? And what in terms of how you're going to approach pushing back if you win a third term, what does that look like? Because we've seen that works.
Yeah, I think most people are seeing this. It's servant leadership. This is a moment. The people who walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis, the folks who you don't know their names, but they were there resisting some of the things we've seen in the past. And I think right now I've got the experience. We've been able to do things together in Minnesota that have improved lives. And I think stepping off the field right now, it's just not the time. And like I said again, I'm sure there's people that can do this job, but I'm positioned to do it. We've proven that we can do it. And look, we're going to need to do this. I've been telling people, I've been saying since January, it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it is going to come to an end. History is not going to be kind to these people. History is going to remember them for what they're trying to do. It's not what they're going to get done. So I'm not naive. This is tough. The federal government makes my job difficult every single day. We're seeing rural hospitals close. As I said, we're seeing insurance costs at a 15-year high. We can't sell soybeans at all, and we've got a farm crisis brewing. Thank God for Willie Nelson coming out here and doing farm aid, because Donald Trump's not going to do a damn thing about it. And all of this, as he fires people who try and tell him what the labor statistics show, trying to make it more difficult, get rid of the National Labor Relations Boards and try and bust unions. I got people who've spent their whole life at the VA hospital caring for our warriors, now out of work and lost their union protections. That's what it is. And I asked the folks who are listening at home, is your life better with Donald Trump? Are you sick and tired of this? He didn't do a damn thing for prices. He's not doing anything. Good luck with your coffee coming up here because of the tariffs. It's all these things. So I don't want to panic people. Democracy is certainly on the line, but there's a lot of basic things that we can do at the state level that can try and fend off some of this. So that's why I'm back in again. And again, the voters will decide, but I do not believe that this lack of compassion and lack of empathy and lack of decency and lack of fact, and my God, I'm home to the Mayo Clinic. I had to issue an executive order that if you want to get a vaccine, you can. I mean, we have gone back 50 years with these people, and Minnesota's not going back. We refuse. It stops at our border. The nonsense stops at our border. You live your life. I've said it again. We will protect you for who you love. We're going to protect families, and I think that's just our calling. And the good thing is I know I'm not in it alone. I'm so proud of folks all across Minnesota, all across this country. Every time I see J.B. Pritzker stand up there, I swell with pride because I know he's fighting the good fight, too.
Maybe I really like Tim Walz because he says a lot of the same stuff I say, that it's going to get worse before it's get better. He acknowledges the reality. He's not trying to sugarcoat things for people. And that's what we need in leadership. Someone who tells you what is true, not what you want to hear or what will make you feel good to hear. But he's also right about one thing, that history will not be kind to these fascists. History will view them as they are. When the economic data is written, we will know exactly the deleterious effects of Donald Trump's tariffs and his tax policy and the additional trillions upon trillions of dollars that are added to the national debt. We will know the damaging effects on our military readiness and our national security based on his eradication of woke or whatever. We will know. We will know what people think and how history records his assault on the Constitution and immigrants in our communities, detaining for days and if not weeks, American citizens who are suspected to not be appropriately loyal or citizens at all. It will be remembered. Tim Walz is right. So I'm glad he's running for re-election. We need more good leaders in this time. Again, there'll be a link at the top of the description if you have some dollars to donate to his campaign. Small dollar donations are what fuel a campaign, and you can take part in something bigger than the rest of us.
The city has also activated an emergency resource center to help those impacted by the shooting.
You know, for all of the rage bait and the lies and the subterfuge and the distractions and the conspiracies about how violence in politics is only from the left. And then we hear Brian Kilmeade want to exact violence against a marginalized, traditionally abused population in homeless and mentally ill people with just kill them. Involuntary lethal injection, which is murder. And he wants to bring this to bear. Death if you're mentally ill or if you're too poor to have a home. This is what he wants, right? This is what the right wing wants. They're frothing at the mouth. They are excited about the prospect of killing. So it makes you wonder, after his little fake scripted apology that was written for him by someone else that he read from a prompter, how little Brian Kilmeade is reacting right now with the assault on homeless people across the country. Multiple things have happened in just the hours after Kilmeade made it be known. Well, we'll just play that clip if you're not aware, if you haven't seen wherever you've been, him explaining his desire for the mentally ill, who are mentally ill by no fault of their own, and homeless, who are homeless oftentimes by no fault of their own because they're just poor and don't have enough money for a home. Watch Brian Kilmeade.
We don't have to, we feel so compassionate because you see the mental health crisis happening.
Exactly.
But it's not our job. We shouldn't have to live in fear while they figure out what's going on right there.
Right.
Put them in a mental institution, put them in a jail, and you guys figure it out. But people having to duck and dive on the trains and the buses, walking through the street, this is one case, but this is happening all across the country, and it's not a money issue. They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Here we are, but hours, just a few days after that comment was callously made, a disgusting, violent remark on the part of one of the talent over at Fox News. And by the way, he didn't stand by it. It was so egregious that he had to apologize, right? So he doesn't agree with it. He said, obviously, I think they should be treated with compassion and empathy. Obviously, even though...
Just kill them.
In the wake of that remark, there was a mass shooting at a homeless encampment in Minneapolis. And that's not all the violence that has come to bear against the homeless population in this country. There were 2 lynchings. One, a black man in Mississippi on a college campus. The other, that person wasn't homeless. What's his name? Trey Reed. The other, Corey Zukadis, was a homeless man who was found hanged in Mississippi. Is that a coincidence that within a day or two, 2 individuals were found dead hanging from a tree? One black man, one homeless man?
Just kill them.
I don't know. Here is a brief snippet from the news in Minneapolis about the homeless encampment shooting that left many people injured. Some people had to crawl back into their tents with gunshot wounds to their heads. Just kill them, huh, Brian?
Just kill them.
Watch this.
A dozen people hurt in 2 mass shootings just a mile apart. And today, video from our chopper shows garbage trucks clearing out the site of one of those mass shootings, an encampment in Minneapolis. New at 6, the man who owns a parking lot says that he might just open up that camp again. Jason Rantala spoke to him, and he joins us now. Hi there, Jason.
Yeah, that's right, Amelia. City crews spent the day today clearing this camp. City officials say next steps include getting a court order, hopefully by tomorrow, so they can put up a fence around the area here. As for the 70 or so people that were staying at this encampment, the city says they've provided resources here daily for access to shelter and treatment. The city has also activated an emergency resource center to help those impacted by the shooting and to connect people with resources. The man who owns the lot says he allowed the camp to continue against city orders because he doesn't believe the city is doing enough to address homelessness.
I'm not here to fight. Do you understand? This is not a fight with me. This is a humanitarian deal. And I have no idea what the fight is. I mean, I have a right to open the camp again. As far as I'm concerned. It's all frustration. He's doing this, showing off. He's flexing muscles. We'll see what happens.
This is simply not a strategy that works. It is not safe. Our obligation is clear. Help people transition into safer, healthier alternatives, not allow them to languish in conditions that guarantee the kind of tragedy that we just saw.
Mayor Fry, what kind of conditions would guarantee a mass shooting? What kind of fear-mongering are you doing? What kind of action are you taking to ensure that people have a shelter, have home? What are you doing? That's a lot of bravado. It's a lot of talk. We need action in this moment. These people are not homeless by choice. They are homeless because they are poor. Poverty is a policy choice. What are you doing through policy, elected representative of the people? What are you doing through policy to abate poverty, to give these people, to provide for these people who don't have enough? What are you doing other than bluster? The conditions that would guarantee this happens. What conditions other than easy access to weapons guarantees a mass shooting at a homeless encampment? And by the way, the guy you saw there who owns this land, this is some of the consternation for the city here, is that this is private property, and the man who owns this land allowed these people to be there. So the city doesn't have the right to trespass on private property to remove these homeless people, the scourge of homeless people who are just sleeping outdoors because there is no indoor place to sleep. And someone took a gun. And again, we don't know the motivations. We don't know the motives. We don't know all the details. But it's mighty coincidental, is it not, that on the heels of Brian Kilmeade saying, just kill him. Just kill him. We have this. And then let's turn to Mississippi. 2 men found hanging from trees in Mississippi on the same day. And if you listen to authorities in Mississippi, I don't know why you would have listened to white authorities in Mississippi on whether or not these were suicides or whether or not these were actual race-based or class-based attacks, especially on the heels of the Brian Kilmeade comment. Just kill him. But let me tell you, it's suspect, is it not? What a weird coincidence. This is from the Mississippi Free Press. Homeless man found hanging from tree in Vicksburg, raising fears after earlier DSU hanging. The body of 35-year-old Corey Zukaitis was found hanging from a tree in a wooded area off of Washington Street in Vicksburg, Mississippi on Monday afternoon. Zukaitis was from Brandon, Mississippi. Quote, "It was a white male in a wooded area where people who live there are homeless and on drugs," Warren County Coroner Doug Husky told Mississippi Free Press on Tuesday morning when asked for details. "He is homeless. I talked to his family." What does him being on drugs have to do with anything other than to malign the man's character after his death? What bearing does it have on it? Coroner. Unless you've done a toxicology report and found that the drugs are what killed him, and that apparently he crawled up into a noose, his dead body, to hang himself. What does it have to do with anything? This is why you don't trust the authorities in Mississippi, especially related to class-based lynchings. The thousands of black people who have been tortured and murdered in the state inside the borders of Mississippi is unconscionable, and they continue their legacy of lies and covering up for racism and violence like this. So look, we don't know if the loving, empathetic, and compassionate comments of Brian Kilmeade, just kill him, if they led to this. We don't know. But again, wow, what a terrible coincidence for the beady-eyed Brian Kilmeade, who wants homeless people to be killed. Their crime, of course, being poor. Conservative Ideology 101. This lesson brought to you by Brian Kilmeade.
Just kill him.
I want to talk a few minutes about Charlie Kirk. Do you know of anyone in their early 30s that accomplished as much as that man?
There is a weird movement afoot to not only normalize Charlie Kirk, to glorify Charlie Kirk. I think that's the way the Right Wing Watch put it in their tweet, the continued glorification of Charlie Kirk. Thanks to Right Wing Watch, by the way, for this clip. I found it on Blue Sky. It is very important. Maybe it was on Threads. Anyway, this is very important because the religious right not only wants to glorify, as Right Wing Watch put it, they not only want to whitewash the history of his comments and his ideologies, apparently they want to deify him as well, which should not come as any shock to you that the cult of Donald Trump wants to lift up. Maybe Charlie Kirk will take the right hand of the father, Donald Trump, in the pantheon of characters in the Trump cult. Get a load of this pastor, Rick Joyner. Jamie Joyner is a pastor from my youth who walked out of a little, if you're from Northern Idaho, Orofino, where I'm from, you might remember Jamie Joyner, who walked out of a religious, like an ecumenical music service because drums were played and drums were from the devil because they were African. That tells you what kind of a community I grew up in. But this is Rick Joyner is his name. And he says, do you know of anyone in their earlier 30s that accomplished as much as Charlie Kirk, except for Jesus, he says. Charlie Kirk, the man who called transgender people, you're an abomination to God. Charlie Kirk, who says that about Muslims, they're not even hiding their intentions. Muslims plan to conquer Europe by demographic replacement. Will Europe wake up in time? All of the insanely racist, hateful, bigoted things he said about black women, about black people in general, that if he sees a black pilot, he's got to think, is he qualified? This is their Jesus figure who's accomplished more than any other early 30s person except for J-Man, except for Jesus the Christ. Watch Rick Joyner.
I want to talk a few minutes about Charlie Kirk. You know, this is something remarkable that is happening. This could be the spark that really begins to harvest. What's happening already is over the top, way beyond what. Have you seen the crowds of people gathering in Europe and Africa and all over the world? And just to honor Charlie Kirk, do you know of anyone in their early 30s that accomplished as much as that man, except for Jesus? I'm just saying.
That's just nuts, is it not? Is it not crazy that this pro-Trump pastor, representative of Jesus, would have you believe that Charlie Kirk should be mentioned, should be lifted up on high to be compared to the Son of God? That's who he believes Jesus is the son of the creator of the universe, the son of the creator of everything seen and unseen. Charlie Kirk is on par with that. Who's accomplished more? I could name a few. Isaac Newton invented calculus in his mid-20s. Malala Yousafzai with the Malala Fund, which is raising money and impacting the lives of millions of girls all across the world in repressive locations to try to secure them education so they can have some autonomy over their life. Malala Yousafzai, after being shot in her head, the crime of going to school, the thing that Charlie Kirk didn't want girls to do because he was a member of the American Taliban. Malala Yousafzai. Louis Braille, at 15 years old, invented a whole new language, text language, for blind people to be able to read. At 15. How about a more contemporary person? Gitanjali Rao, at age 11 in 2017, she won the 3M Young Scientist Challenge for a device called Tethys that uses carbon nanotube sensors to detect lead in drinking water, which will invariably save lives. It will prevent people from being poisoned by lead, which lowers IQ, which raises the propensity of violence. Some of the things that we know about our crime statistics in this country were when things were very bad, let's say in New York City in the 70s, is because we had regular gasoline that had lead in it that was just poisoning our globe and our people. That's how bad lead is. And this child, this article that I just read from is from 2020, and they said she was in 2017, 3 years ago at 14. So that means she was 11 years old, this 14-year-old girl, 3 years before this. A year later, at 12 years old, she won a prize in the TCS Ignite Innovation Student Challenge for inventing Epione, a tool that diagnoses early-stage prescription opioid addiction. Quote, so many teens, especially my age, were starting to get addicted, she says. Epione works by testing blood for increased protein production in a specific gene. So how's that? There's an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old doing more than Charlie Kirk ever did. Not spreading hate, not spreading bigotry, not spreading white nationalism, not spreading Christian nationalism, not spreading absolute toxicity into the world. I just gave you some examples, Rick Joyner. You gonna take them, brother? Or are you gonna continue to venerate and worship, because you are in the Trump cult, another Trump cult member in Charlie Kirk, the racist, Christian nationalist bigot? Christianity in America today, white Christianity in America today, evangelical white Christianity in America today, it is a foundation of lies and conspiracy based on Christian nationalism, that we were founded as a Christian nation. Nothing could be farther from the truth, especially when you take into account the words of the United States Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. It doesn't get any easier than that. It doesn't get any more clear than that. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. As always, you can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it, whether that be Facebook or YouTube. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. Please subscribe. It is free to subscribe. It is free to like and follow the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily. If you haven't done so, we just crossed 1.2 million here on this platform on YouTube. And we are staring down the barrel of 10,000 likes and follows on Facebook. You see how things just there's no balance between social media platforms and content platforms. 10,000 on Facebook and 1.2 million here. It's just nonsense. Anyway, help me out. If you feel the Spirit move you, we'll continue with the religious themes. I love and appreciate you very much. I will see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another.